I'm Stu Kohn. I'm the president of the Howard County Citizens Association. And I want to thank everyone for being here today. We hope it is. Is it on? Is that better? Okay. And we really appreciate everyone being here today. And I want to say something that we are somewhat in mourning because a young lady passed away 8 days ago, and Grace Kubofcik. Grace Kubofcik was, how many people know Grace Kubofcik? That's what I thought. And that in itself tells it all about her. She was, without a doubt, the most respected individual I've ever met in my life. She was dedicated and one of the smartest persons I've ever met in my life as well. And she will be greatly missed. We saw her on the 20th of May at an APFO committee meeting, and that's what tonight's theme is all about, APFO. I'd like to give the mic over to someone who requested that, Miss Liz Bobo, who was the former county executive, wants to say just a few words.
Thank you. Grace was a dear, dear friend of Lloyd's and mine, but beyond that, she was the most selfless, not looking for credit, not looking for praise, community activist on cases of social, economic, and environmental justice that I have ever known in my life. So I'm so glad that you called this to our attention here today, and may we hold her in our thoughts as we go forward with this message, this meeting, talking about the kind of things that she gave her life to. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Appreciate it. We're very, very fortunate tonight to have some special guests. You all are all special, but these individuals I'm going to mention are perhaps special. And one of them is Superintendent Bill Barnes. Want to stand up, Bill? Sure. To have him come out tonight, especially when school's still in session. One more day, is that correct, sir? Yeah, but you're not counting. You're not counting, are you?
I'm not counting.
That's what I thought. We have in the audience Miss Deb Young. Where are you, Deb? And Deb Young, of course, is the District 4, my district, and I'm thankful that she's our council person. Thank you, Deb. I mean that. And Liz Walsh, where's Miss Walsh? Liz Walsh is District 1, and I believe she's got quite a following behind her. Yeah. Yes. We have Liz Hammond. And Ms. Hammond is from S.T.A.N.D, S.T.A.N.D, and that's a group that we are very fortunate to be celebrating tonight because we HCCA, Howard County Citizens Association, are going to be giving them a nice contribution, which they so readily deserve, and there'll be a speaker. Where's Coach Duncan? And Coach Duncan is the leader. Well, we're going to tell you. Tune in. Stay another 15 minutes and you'll learn. No, relax, okay? Everything will be good, I promise you. Yeah. Miss Bobo, I just introduced her. Liz Bobo, you want to stand up again, ma'am? You get some exercise. Yeah. Okay. Liz Bobo was a former county executive of Howard County, and she was absolutely terrific, and I mean that. Thank you. And her husband, Lloyd Knowles. Lloyd Knowles, you had something to do with the county, did you not, sir?
12 years councilman.
12 years councilman. Were you good? I thought so. I heard it. It's written in stall 3 in the men's room. Yes, thank you. And we're going to have Councilwoman Sarah Elfreth is going to be here shortly. And Congresswoman, what did I say?
She's right there walking in.
Oh, she's coming in now, on cue. Terrific. Okay. Jenny Thomas, you can stand up. Jenny Thomas also was a former council person, is that correct? And a delegate. Is that correct, ma'am? So, yeah, okay. And where's Eva Lewis? Eva? And Miss Lewis works for the Congresswoman Elfreth. Is that correct? And Congresswoman Elfreth is coming in now. What timing, ma'am? And this is Congresswoman Elfreth. We are so fortunate to have her here, and Congresswoman, we really appreciate it very much. Terrific. Thanks you for coming. We'll pay you later. Okay. I just want to say how fortunate we are to be here tonight. And HCCA was started, believe it or not, 65 years ago. Probably older than anyone in this room. Is that correct? That's what I thought. That's what I thought. And I think it's best to say what our group, Winston Churchill, had a quote. And the quote is, "Success is not final, failure is not fatal, it is the courage to continue which counts." And that's what we, HCCA, try to do. And I think in the long run, to a great extent, we've succeeded. If you go on our website, which is howardcountyhcca.org, how many people have been on our website, out of curiosity? The majority. Okay. I'm a little bit prejudiced. I think it's one of the best websites, bar none. And one of the contributors of that is Mr. Paul Markovitz. Where's Paul? He doesn't want to be recognized, but I'm going to recognize him. So he's a little bashful. But in any event, we have a vision statement, and the vision is, vision without action is a daydream, while action without vision is a nightmare. It is this action that we will continue to strive. And if you look at our website with our vision, I'll just read a few of them. Be a watchdog organization to ensure roads, schools, and quality of life issues do not deteriorate because of poor planning. And that is so appropriate, especially tonight, because tonight, Ms. Lisa Markovitz is going to talk about APFO. APFO is Adequate Public Ordinance, Facilities Ordinance. And I sometimes call it ALPO, but we're going to try to improve that. ALPO meaning allows you protective ordinance. But we're going to try to improve that as much as we can. It's difficult, but we have people in this room and us that are trying to do everything we can to make it better. We are proud that we work with communities as consultants and advocates regarding zoning issues. We're doing that right now in certain groups. We totally believe in transparency, aging in place, and ensure that Columbia continues as a planned community with the different approach embodied in Newtown zoning. And speaking of Newtown zoning, one of our board members, Brian England, can't be here tonight. He was here. He brought the water. He'll come back and come back around 8:30 or so. But he right now is in a Newtown committee's meeting, and we appreciate everything that he does, and his knowledge in Newtown is phenomenal. Our accomplishments are quite extensive, and if you go on our website, you can see all the various and sundry testimonies that we've given over the years since about 2014-13, and there's a lot of them. And one of the things that I think we're most proud of is, and thanks to Deb Young and Liz Walsh, the Inspector General. And Ms. Young just did a yes. And I think a yes. And we only hope that when the Inspector General comes in place, that it will be a blessing for Howard Countyans. And the good news was that when it came on to vote, the vote was absolutely beyond belief with the amount of people that voted in favor of it. So the voters are looking for perhaps potential relief of some of the stuff that goes on that we're going to try to improve. And that's what we're going to try to do. I'm also very, very thrilled, and I mean thrilled, that we have a newsletter that just came out, hot off the press, and I mean hot off the press as of yesterday? Yeah. And the newsletters are in the back, and the newsletters are, major part is our latest board member is a young individual, not younger than me, is Ryan Powers. You want to stand up, Ryan, please? And Ryan suggested that we do a newsletter, and we had a newsletter. How many years ago, Ryan?
At least at 1962.
1962, but somehow it got lost in the shuffle. So we're trying to re-engage it, to say the least, give it some birth. And Ryan suggested it to us and pursued it, and we have the first issue, and we'd like to hear what you guys think, and put it on your pillow tonight and think about it. Okay? So that takes care of that. I also, at this time, want to recognize some other board members. I mentioned Brian England, Howard Johnson. He's our membership coordinator. He's our membership coordinator. And he also is the chair of the BWI Roundtable. That's airplane noise. You guys experience airplane noise around your places? Yeah, well, he's been trying to do something about it, him and a lot of others, which is very appreciative. And we got Lisa Markovitz. She's a vice president of our organization, president of the People's Voice, APFO committee member, and also a columnist of the Business Monthly. Kristy Mumma is our treasurer, and I'd rather be president than treasurer, because treasurer is more responsibility. I mentioned Ryan. Alan Schneider, where's Alan? He's our secretary, and thank you, Alan, for doing that. He also works with Chow Wu, the delegate. Paul Verchinski, back there with the pizza. He's also a member of the BWI Roundtable. He's very recognized in electronic vehicles. He's the state. He was appointed by Hogan, a state zero emissions EV infrastructure council, and he's also EV working group through Public Service Commission. And then we have Karina Fisher. Where's Karina? Yeah. And Karina is the vice president of the Parents Teacher Association Council of Howard County and board member of St. John's Community Association. And at this point, I'd like to have Karina come up here. And she's going to say a few words.
Hello, everybody. It's good to see familiar, friendly faces, and it's really good to see new faces, too. Because as anybody knows who's engaged in community advocacy, it is a heavy lift, and it is a sustained lift. So everybody being involved and knowledgeable about the topics helps us all. So thank you, everybody, for being here. For those of you who have attended our annual meetings in the past, you'll know that we usually nominate as a board an advocate of the year and recognize them for their efforts in the community. This year we decided to twist that a little bit and look for a nonprofit organization that does the real work, the hard work, and the sustained work on the ground. So I'm going to read now so I don't get choked up. Tonight, HCCA would like to recognize the work of S.T.A.N.D mentorship. The Stepping Towards a New Destiny program was designed specifically to help reach our youth who are in crisis, our 1% who are facing the deepest challenges like navigating poverty, trauma, housing instability, and system neglect. With the right support, our vulnerable youth can thrive. If we care about real safety, then we must invest in real solutions for those often left behind. I'd like to thank the paying membership of HCCA because it is with those dues that we are able to present a contribution to the work that Coach Duncan does, real boots on the ground work. $500 to contribute towards those efforts. So thank you for all paying members. It's because of that we're able to do that. So with Coach Duncan, HCCA recognizes the heavy lift and hard work that you do. We'd like to invest in the success of the S.T.A.N.D program and therefore the success of our 1%. It would be an honor if you would accept our contribution of $500 in that mission. And as of now, I'd like to bring you on up, Coach Duncan, so that you can share more about the awesome program.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. When I walked in here today, I said, man, this is a room full of beautiful people. I mean, I was looking around, where's Miss Jenny? There she is, beautiful. Miss Karina, just beautiful people in here today. Thank you all. One of the things that I've learned about life is that we all are looking for that fulfillment. At the end of the day, we all want that thing that fulfill. And for me, it's finding purpose. And it's finding purpose in life. And once you find your purpose, you find that fulfillment that you've been looking for. That's what S.T.A.N mentorship is all about. First, I just want to take an honor just to thank Ms. Karina, Ms. Liz, Bill Bonds, Mr. Cornell, everyone that's here on today, and all of the mentors and coaches that could not be here on today that's in the community meeting with our kids working right now. S.T.A.N Mentorship is an organization that started 10 years ago. The whole goal was for young individuals to have assistance with their career path. We believe that if you expose young kids to careers, whether it be trades and innovation, whether it be college tours, that they have a more positive chance and opportunity to succeed. And over the last 8 years, we were able to do that. I say 8 years because over the last 2 years, things have changed. We started our program in Baltimore City, and we've been here in Howard County for 10 years. One of the things that I've noticed over the last 2 years, we had an opportunity where someone reached out to us, and thank you, Ms. Deb. She's always come in and listened to our kids in the community as well. But one of the things that someone reached out to us and said, hey, we've seen that you're having great success with our young people in the community. Can you bring your program to Homewood? We said, sure. So we came to Homewood, and while we were working at Homewood, we encountered a lot of kids that did not have the opportunity that the other kids in our Leadership Academy had. So we said, man, we had to adjust and adjust quickly. These kids that we were working with, most of them had already had records, had interactions with the Department of Juvenile Services, and this was something, honestly, that we didn't know how to navigate at the time, but we was able to navigate. I have 4 kids of my own. One is currently a Wild Lake Middle School teacher. Yes, Wild Lake Middle School teacher, Wild Lake High School graduate. I have another one that's plays the band for Wild Lake High School and Twin Girls. That's at Longfellow, where my wife teaches as well. So, family full of educators, taught in Baltimore City schools for many years. I have never carried kids of my own. I have never carried, but I have 4 of my own. But what I have had to experience over the last 2 years, I would even say over the last couple of months, I know what it's like to sit in a room with a mother that cannot leave her room because her son lost his life in front of them all. I know what that's like, and visit with her every day. I know what it's like to go to the hospital at shock trauma every single night and take some of the kids there to see their friends and be there when the mother pulls the plug on her son. I know what that is like. I was there, I did it. Then had to do the eulogy for one of those kids. I know what it's like with Angelo, who lost his life inside of the mall last year. I know what that's like, and I carry that every single day. This is why we do what we do. This is why I fight. One of the things that we have to understand is that, and I use this with my wife, is that after being married for 17 years, and a lot of y'all that's been married longer, maybe about the same time, is that my wife and I come to a place where we don't always agree, but we understand. I have learned to say, help me understand your thought pattern. Help me understand what it is that you're feeling. Help me understand how I made you feel. And whether I agree or not, understanding makes a difference. What we have to do sometimes is not always agree with the methods that is used to reach our youth. When the solutions come down to, are you being impactful? If we can get to a place where we can come to a place of understanding that we are all here together, we are all a community. Whether you live in East Howard County, West Friendship, Ellicott City, that we all are here as a community and we can be a village. One of the things that we have to do sometimes is just change our lens. Change the lens on how we see what we see. That's called understanding. We may not always agree, but we can get to a place where we can understand. I'm wrapping up. I will say this. I'm very careful with words. I believe words have power. I will not call what we are seeing around the country a crisis with our youth. I don't believe it's a crisis, but it's an urgency. It's a call to action that those that may not have had an opportunity to succeed, that we can give them an opportunity to succeed. That those that come to our schools every single day, and I'm grateful that my kids had a great opportunity and they're successful, but those at-risk kids, they're not my own. But when they come to me, they are my own. Because when a mother calls me, whether that mother is Black, white, Indian, or Hispanic, or even Asian, because now the kids that are facing the urgency is all different races. It is no longer, we can say it's just African American kids or Black kids or whatever we call them. They're our kids. And what we have to do is change our lens of how we view our kids and the things that we say about them, and what do we do for our community to help our community. Again, this is not a crisis, but there is an urgency. I ask everyone that is here today, the mission of S.T.A.N. is that we give youth opportunities that may not have that opportunities. We can save a life. You may not ever come to Wild Lake Middle School or Homewood or Passages and say, I can teach a class. But you may have resources to say, hey, we have a building that we can put these kids in. Thank you all for that $500, because that is going to be used for our summer program, that kids do have access to tutoring, along with some of the other funds that we have received recently, that our kids have activities that cannot afford activities over the summer. We are going to continue to fight for our kids. We are going to continue to fight for our community, because all of us have a right to feel safe. All of us have a right to walk down the street and feel like something's going to happen. But our kids have a right to say that I had an opportunity to succeed. I didn't come from an affluent background, but I had an opportunity to succeed because someone cared enough to look and change their lens of how they saw life. You may not have ever struggled, but if you can take for 1 minute, just change your lens and say, I've got to look at this situation differently. We have a group of guys right now in the community. Some is home resting because they have worked all day long. But we are here, we're in the community because we realize that there's an urgency with our youth to do something different. I will say this and wrap up. Our youth make up 40% of our population, but 100% of our future. They make up 100% of our future. We have to do what it takes that all of our kids in this beautiful county called Howard succeeds. Every kid must succeed in Howard County. Again, thank you, Ms. Karina. Thank you all for your time and your opportunity to just listen today. Appreciate every last one of you. This helps a kid over the summer. Thank you all.
The biggest thing, people try to say, yeah, you gotta respect your elders or you gotta stay in a child's place, but it's like nowadays the kids want that, like they crave that respect. So it's like I'm gonna always give them respect because respect is a two-way street. I don't expect them to respect me if I don't respect them back.
Thanks.
So it's like I'm gonna always respect all the young guys, all my students, all my mentees, so that way they know that they're appreciated and they're heard and they're seen, and that way they can respect me back.
Facts. If your kid is, you feel like you can't connect to them, you can't get through to them, just love them for who they are. Don't ever stop doing that. That's the one thing that you can't go wrong with. Continue to show love, because eventually that love is going to break that barrier that people look so bad to break.
Daryl Jeffries is the Howard County Program Director with S.T.A.N D, a mentoring program that started in Baltimore and expanded to Howard County in 2023. The program goes through everything from helping with homework to teaching leadership, all to give them the skills they need to be on the path away from crime.
We kind of try to guide them and teach them about themselves, give them a lot of character building and leadership like skills and techniques that they can use to develop themselves.
I love every last one of y'all.
I love you too, Cal.
That speech, sir, Coach Duncan, was absolutely inspirational and then some. So we appreciate everything that your group does, and we are just so glad that we were able to afford that kind of money. And the reason we can afford it is because of paid membership. Now, we have forms out there, and hopefully people will pick those forms up, sign it, and we also, the membership fee is very nominal, to say the least. $20 and $10 if you're a senior. So, and also you can go on our website, howardcountyhcca.org, and you can get membership there. And we appreciate it very much. The pizza's not free, and this room is not free. So any money that you are willing to give is deeply, deeply appreciated. Now I have the pleasure of introducing Congresswoman Sarah Elfreth. And Ms. Elfreth, I don't know how many people know this, but she beat out, in her running for Congress, she beat out 21 competitors. Is that correct? Yes. So that says a lot right there. 21 people you beat, ma'am. Congratulations. You deserve it. Ms. Elfreth, during her career, she's a champion of the environment. Is that true, ma'am?
Yes.
Good. We only tell the truth here. So help me God. She currently sits on 2 committees in the House, which are the Natural Resource and the Armed Service. 2 very prestigious committees, to say the least. She also is on several caucuses, the Congressional Equity, New Democratic Coalition, Democratic Women's Labor Caucus, and Sustainable Energy Environment Coalition. Did I miss anything? That's on your website. I cheated.
Speaker caucus.
Okay, good. So it's an honor, ma'am, to have you here. And if you want to say a few words, we would like that. We're also going to have, I don't know how long you can stay.
It's about 7:30.
7:30, okay. We're also going to have questions and answers, but the good news is Superintendent Barnes is going to speak after that. And then if you all stay, we might entertain some questions. So you got it, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Stu. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. It's wonderful to walk in a room in a community I don't live in and recognize a good amount of faces. So thank you so much for having me. As Stu said, my name is Sarah Elfreth. I've proudly served as your Congresswoman for the last 6 months, though it's felt like a decade in the last 6 months. But for folks I might not know, before that I served for 6 years in the Maryland State Senate, serving on the Budget and Taxation Committee. And before that, way before that, I was the vice president of my own community association. And so that's kind of where I got my start in my own neighborhood, just like you are, advocating for the things that are really important, like safe streets and, you know, fully funding our schools and an environment that we can all be proud of. So I'm going to give just a couple brief updates from Washington, and then Stu, if I could take a question or two while I'm here, I'll try to be very brief, unlike a politician. Okay, so listen, folks, I'm not going to sugarcoat what's going on in D.C. I think we all know, we all read the news, we all are impacted one way or another by what's happening, particularly from this administration. So the first 6 months here have really been about how can I, along with Team Maryland, our 2 U.S. senators and the rest of the delegation, how can I stand up for this district? And we're doing so in a number of ways. Of course, we all know that here in Maryland, we are disproportionately and acutely impacted by whatever happens in Washington, but particularly with our civil servants. I'm the daughter of 2 civil servants, so this is a personal issue for me. And we also have 44,000 federal workers in the district, and 2 to 3 times that in folks who are contracted with the federal government. So again, the decisions out of the White House and the actions of DOJ, we all know have disproportionately impacted this district. Some other things that are obviously a huge concern for me is the federal funding freeze and the just slashing and burning of the federal funding coming to our districts. And I know the superintendent's probably going to talk about that existential crisis as well tonight. I'm also deeply concerned about, you've heard about the president's big, beautiful bill, I'm sure, in the news, but it has absolutely devastating consequences for communities across this country. Up to 16 million people can lose their health insurance. It completely redefines what we consider a dependent in terms of SNAP benefits. We're talking about the hungriest people in our communities. It also slashes Pell Grant funding, which we know has been the great equalizer for so many in our country. I'm proud to have voted against that. I'm going to be voting against it again, I predict, probably in 2 weeks, and to try to fight back against these really harmful policies. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. I feel like all I'm doing is bringing the negative, but I just want you to know that we are united as a delegation fighting back against many of these challenges. But it's not just being vocal. It's not just standing up with our federal workers. It's not just attending rallies and protests. I'm proud to be the first Democrat to have a bipartisan anti-DOJ bill. I have 5 Republican co-sponsors and a bill that's going to hopefully support our civil servants. And we're working every single day to stand up for our constituents. And so I'm just going to end on what I am able to do, even in the minority and even in this position, which is be here for our constituents on your hardest days. And I learned that in the state Senate, that you don't have to pass legislation, though it's a good thing to do so, but the most important job we have is your representatives. And I know, looking at Liz, 2 Liz's, sorry, and looking at Deb, the most important role we have, obviously, is constituent services and being there for our neighbors. And so that's why I wanted to, I have with me my district director, Eva Lewis, in the back, and Eva and her wonderful team in our district office, which is located right here in Columbia, across from the mall. We have a fantastic team of caseworkers, of folks who are helping to organize our academy nominations, all those things. They're located right here in Columbia. So if we can ever be of help, whether it's you work with a nonprofit that had their federal funds frozen, we've been able to unlock some of that federal fund. If you or your neighbor have trouble getting access to your Social Security benefits or your tax refund or your VA benefits, we literally, that's why we are here, and we've had significant success being there for our neighbors. Or if you have neighbors like my neighbor this morning was picked up by ICE, if you have folks who are immigrant families who need support, please let our office be your first call, because we work every single day within the federal bureaucracy to support our communities. And so if I can leave you on hopefully a high note, which is that's why I'm here tonight, because I wanted to communicate to you all that regardless of the chaos, we are standing up for you, and we are right here in your community to be as helpful as possible. Eva is waving things at me. One is a letter that is some federal resources that we can be supportive of, and the other is don't judge the printing. We printed it in the office, but just a little handout with our office number, our office phone, and ways that we can be supportive of you. If you experienced any of the issues that I just discussed, that's what we're here to do. So I'm trying to, even in these darker days, I'm trying to make sure that we are here for each and every one of you on your hardest day. And I'll just end on this, and we met with some of the folks from our university community last week. It's a really difficult moment in our country's history right now. And regardless of anybody's political position, I think we can all agree the turmoil, the uncertainty, but we are going to weather this storm together, and we're going to get through it. And we're going to get through it because you are leaning in and participating tonight. That's what gives me hope. That's exactly what our framers had in mind, of people participating in their self-governance. And so I'm really grateful to Stu and to the whole team here for inviting me here tonight, because this is how we're going to get through it, which is together. So thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, Congresswoman. You said that you bring bad news, but there's good news. You know what the good news is? You're here. Thank you. And working for us, which is deeply appreciated. Okay, because the Congresswoman has to leave, we want to get in Mr. Barnes here, of course. But we're going to change the plan just slightly. Is that okay, Lisa? Thank you. Lisa's my boss, other than my wife, who's back there. So, go ahead, Drew. Wait a minute. Take the mic.
Sure. Drew Roth from Elk Ridge. I'm a member of the BWI Roundtable, along with Howard Johnson, the current chair, Deb Young, the representative from the Howard County Council, and Paul Verchinski. And as I'm sure you're aware, airport noise has a significant impact on our quality of life. And your former congressional delegation district and state senate district in Anne Arundel County and most of Howard County. Would you consider joining the Quiet Skies Coalition in Congress?
Thank you for that question, Drew. And yes, I represented the part of the district that is Annapolis for the last 7 years, and yes, we are directly in the flight path, as many of you in this room are. There are so many caucuses in Congress. There's a Speaker Caucus and STAG Caucus. So I've not heard of this coalition, but if you let me look at it.
Yeah, Quiet Skies.
Quiet Skies.
Airport noise.
Okay, I will look into it, and 99% yes, but I got to read the plain text.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Kat Carter. I'm from Woodbine, and I have two quick questions. The first question is you know me as an advocate, especially for access to health care, and as we see health care being taken away, are we looking at forming bipartisan effort to bolster our federally qualified health centers to be a supplemental means with the sliding scale and so forth to help support? And in addition, you know, I'm also a vision advocate. Now that VSP vouchers have been removed nationwide, I have been contacted as the consumer advocate on the state board of examiners of optometry. The school board, the school system, the teachers union are contacting the Maryland Association of Optometrists. If we can somehow get vision care, because only 7% of it is available in federally qualified health centers. My second question is my church helped a lot of the Afghan refugees when they first arrived, and they are losing funding and support, and I'm wondering where that's going and if we can somehow convince that to come back.
Excellent question. Look forward to that. I'll just project. So to your first point, there's so much to hate about the big, beautiful bill. And I think first and foremost is it's pretty indiscriminate in terms of slashing of health care. It starts with Medicaid, as we all know, and I think Medicaid folks think have one idea, but you know, the majority of children in this country rely on Medicaid for their health insurance. 62% of seniors in assisted living rely on Medicaid for their health insurance, our disabled neighbors. So it starts with slashing Medicaid, and then it goes on to your point about sliding scale. It's going to take a lot of the subsidies away from folks who get in Maryland, their health care through the Maryland Exchange, the ACA. And then it also takes a hit to Medicare, despite what the president says. Working very closely with our hospitals. I'm actually going to be touring BWMC tomorrow. I started with Howard County General, just so folks in this room know. I did that back in February. I'm most worried about our hospitals and our nursing facilities right now, because we all know that their margins are already incredibly thin. So our health system is not built to take $1 trillion hit. What I'm hoping for is that the bill is in the Senate right now. Some committees have started marking it up. I'm hoping that cooler heads will prevail, but barring that, I'm hoping that they're going to actually extend the implementation beyond the next election, so that the House at least can, hopefully we have a chance at winning the majority and reversing some of these changes. But it's, I try my very best every single day, and if you're like my mom and you watch C-SPAN to try to find me, I do spend a lot of time across the aisle, because I disagree with with almost everything, but I do try to reason. I try to the coach's point, I try to understand first and foremost where people are coming from, because frankly, there's many Republicans in the House right now whose districts will be far more impacted by these healthcare cuts than ours, and yet the decisions are still being made. So I'm trying my best to understand and to build coalitions. Particularly to your point, it's our rural hospitals that are going to be hit the hardest, so outside of this district, and that's where federally qualified health centers really could come in and help save the day, and we need to expand them here in Maryland, and it's something I would like to work on. And to your second point, I don't understand the logic of this White House and the things that they are choosing to cut from, to your point, refugees who literally helped us and were our allies. They cut a small little program at USDA, but folks, it funded connecting food banks and schools to local farmers and getting fresh produce. And I mean, it's a beautiful, perfect piece of policy that they just completely eliminated. And I could go on all day with some of the cruelty of these cuts. They just don't make any sense in terms of supporting our neighbors and doing what's right. So I will have those conversations, but I'll tell you, I left DC on Thursday, and the last vote we took was to cut funding from PBS, from NPR, and from USAID. And I serve on the House Armed Services Committee, as Stu said. I mean, from just a purely selfish national security point, there's no worse thing we could do than cut off humanitarian aid to countries around the world. That is I don't want to get too harsh on foreign policy, but that's exactly what Russia and China wanted us to do. So A, it's inhumane, and B, it's just really short-sighted. And again, I could spend all night talking about these cuts. I promise you, I'm doing everything we can, but I also have to remain really hopeful that we can push back in 18 months. And that's as political as I'll get in the room.
Two more questions.
Yeah. Hi.
Mark Norman. I live in Ellicott City. And first, thank you very much for coming and for your remarks. I'm wondering, regarding your operation and just the way you're able to try to help the country move forward, where do you find opportunities for common ground? There's such a great divide, because it would appear that, quite frankly, every Republican is scared to death of having a tweet sent against them or $20 million poured into the next primary because they don't follow the proper protocol. And I'm wondering, how do you find a way to cross that bridge and to build consensus? Is there a good reception towards that, or privately do people basically just say, "Look, I'm all with you, I just can't do it"?
Yes, they do. And I've only been in Congress 6 months, but I've been really trying to have those intense conversations and try to ask a lot of questions and try to understand someone else's district and try to find the commonality with this district right here. And so yes, in private, many of them understand how short-sighted and cruel many of these actions are. If I could ask anybody in this room to do anything, it's this. And I say this as I mentioned my parents were civil servants, but they're also major supporters of this president, which makes Thanksgiving very uncomfortable. But I think we have become so ingrained in this country that we don't talk about politics or difficult things, that we've stopped being able to talk about them in civilized ways. And your point about social media is completely accurate. You know, you wouldn't speak to somebody in the grocery store line the way we speak to people on the internet. So I think what we need, if I could ask anybody to do anything, is each of you knows somebody who lives in a district that doesn't look like ours and is represented by somebody who doesn't vote like I do. And if you could just have a conversation with them and ask questions and try to understand their point of view and try to get them to engage, because I'm doing my best in the chamber having these one-on-one conversations, but my colleagues need to hear from their constituents, and they're just not nearly as much as I hear from you all. And I have a phenomenal team, and I get bi-weekly reports of every single person who's called our office and every email we get, and I know from where you're calling and what you're calling about, because I'm doing my best to stay as close to the ground when I'm in Washington and not here. I don't know if all of my colleagues are doing the same thing. So I think they're making a lot of these decisions, to your point, out of fear, but they're also not hearing from their constituents as much as I would hope they would.
Do you think there's a point at which they will actually come back to voting their conscience, whatever that may be, their political perspective for their constituents, as opposed to just being so worried about losing their job?
I would like to hope so, because I don't know how we get through this without that, because I'm focused on 18 months from now, but it's a long 18 months, and I need my colleagues to stand up and do what's right. I will also say, and I'm just going to say this because of what happened on Saturday, a lot of my colleagues are very scared on both sides of the aisle. And a lot of really good Republicans quit in the last Trump administration because they and their families received so many threats that they didn't feel like it was worthwhile to be here anymore. And so we all need to tone collectively rhetoric down, because it's becoming, as we, I don't even have any words for what happened in Minnesota. It's horrible, and we all have a role to play in trying to better understand one another and trying to find the common ground, to your point. I'm sorry, that's all I know, and all I can do is try to extend that olive branch wherever I can.
I can give you the easy answer. It's when he's no longer a fixture of politics.
I hope so.
Nobody else controls the room.
I hope so. I do. I hope so. Yes.
Hello, thank you for being
Yes.
here. And thank you for being here tonight as a board member. And then I'm going to switch hats a little bit. I'm Executive Vice President of PTAC, and you visited us while you were in campaign season, and congratulations for winning. I want to kind of push forward a topic that was shared there. As you saw, all our PTAC presidents are there, PTA delegates, and funding, lack of it, both on the operating side and the capital side. And here in Howard County, we say we're the most affluent, but at a high school like Centennial High School, we literally have ceiling tiles falling in on desks. It's a danger, it's a hazard. And so if we're world class, what are we doing? Yeah. So I wanted to follow up with that after another round of budget cuts and losing teachers, classroom sizes increase, GT program was cut, and we're still in a capital crisis. So in following up from those questions experienced at the forum, if you could give a little insight to how federally we can support our public school system that is rapidly deteriorating.
Yeah. Thank you. First of all, thank you for your advocacy. And I wouldn't be here or in Congress without the public schools that I was fortunate enough to go to. So first and foremost, I'm sorry I haven't been able to be as proactive as I had planned way back in the before times that I visited PTAC. Because we're on defense right now. Particularly, you've all seen the president's plans to completely eliminate the Department of Education, which there's so much to be terrified about. Let's be clear. First and foremost in the front of my mind is the Office of Civil Rights, which, they claim can be reshuffled into other places, but I don't think there's been a more effective office in terms of guaranteeing rights and educational opportunities for our kids than that office within the Department of Education. There's also significant talk about, obviously, the student loan challenge, not challenge, what they're trying to do to student loans through the big, beautiful bill, what they're trying to do to Pell Grants that I mentioned. And what Karina's, I think, asking me is there's no federal funding for capital for schools. And obviously, I think we're experiencing that, not just in Howard County, but in schools across the state and across the country. And so, yes, in an ideal world where I was in the majority, we would be putting forth that bill. It hasn't been filed yet, but let me follow up with you on the status of that bill, because it's been so long and I can't even recall who's the lead sponsor of it. It's also been a long week and it's Tuesday. But I will make sure that we get to you the lead sponsor of the bill. I don't believe it's been introduced yet, or else it would pop up into my brain, but we'll get you the status of it. And if it has been introduced and I'm already not a co-sponsor, I will be signing on to it. If it hasn't been introduced, we'll reach out to that sponsor and see what they need to do. But talk about, to the gentleman's point, this is a unifying common issue across, looking at the superintendent across all schools in this country, that we all have significant capital deferred maintenance challenges that are inhibiting people's ability to get an equal education in this country. Thank you. Thank you all so very much. Please visit our office. It's right across from the mall. We've done 13 town halls in my first 6 months as your member of Congress. We're going to continue to do more of that, continue to host academy nights and all different activities. While I spent a lot of time in DC, I want you to feel like I do live in Howard County, so you're going to see me here quite often and over the next couple of days, weeks, and months. So thank you again for inviting me, and thank you for your participation.
Thank you so much. I now have the pleasure of introducing our second guest speaker of the evening, and that is our very own Howard County Public School System Superintendent, Bill Barnes. Mr. Barnes was appointed superintendent on July 1, 2024, after serving as acting superintendent from January 10th to June 30th, 2024. Previously, he was the HCPSS Chief Academic Officer, and I love this about him. He was also a math teacher, so he's walked the walk. So not just talking the talk. As a longtime and committed school advocate myself, I can tell you that I have personally been excited about the leadership vision of Mr. Barnes from the moment that he publicly introduced himself. During that introduction, the organizational structure of HCPSS was flipped to where our students are at the top versus executive leadership, and snuggled right underneath the students are our beloved teachers, exactly where they should be. From there, in one of the very first topics tackled was that of adopting a cell phone policy. This was in response to years of unanswered pleas coming from our teachers, but Mr. Barnes' leadership, he listened, literally visiting each and every school, and came back to report that the number one concern of our teachers was the cell phones and what they were doing in a destructive nature to our classrooms. And because of his leadership, that door opened to getting that done. And I want to say that your executive team was amazing in putting together the work group, engaging over 40 stakeholders, teachers, principals, leaders, everyone. So I know you're exhausted from the budget cycle, but thank you for joining us tonight. I'll turn it over to you.
So good evening, everyone. Does everyone know who Edward Everett is? Do you know that name? You probably don't, because that was the person who spoke before Abraham Lincoln, and just after Abraham Lincoln, right before the Gettysburg Address. No one remembers Edward Everett because he droned on for 2 hours. I feel a little bit like Edward Everett, speaking after Congresswoman Elfreth and Coach Duncan, both whose message and topics were much more poignant than the APFO discussion I'll talk about in a few minutes. But I will say this, as a superintendent, I have the awesome responsibility and privilege of leading the school system, and am intending to do so, am doing so by making sure that everyone understands that we can't do it alone. And so when we talk about a message that says lead with understanding, thinking about how to do things differently, and also showing up, and you have elected officials in this district that show up, and and our council members and our congresswoman, and people truly care about education. So I'm so very fortunate as a superintendent. As we think about Congresswoman Elfreth's message, it's our time, and you don't always get to choose your time of leadership, like, and the circumstances surrounding. We'd all like to be better situated financially or policy or human rights. That's not what we're dealing with right now. So what we can do is show up for each other. I'm really grateful for the message about changing the tone of the conversation, taking the volume down, reminding ourselves of how to speak to one another and disagree in civil discourse, because that's what it's going to take. We have to teach our children how to disagree so they can come into the world and inherit the world in a better, and take us in a better direction. So thank you for the privilege of allowing me to work with your children every day, our children, and to do this work. So tonight, I know we're going to talk about adequate public, what is it? APFO. It has been a long week, and it is Tuesday. Yeah, APFO. I've been saying the acronym so long. When I work, and Miss McCoy, our board member, is going to work on those acronyms. We're talking about how that intersects with our school system. What's our role in APFO? In the way, how do we interact? How does it engage? How do we engage? And what happens as a result of it? Because we're sitting in the middle of it. We're on the thing all superintendents pursue the job for, redistricting, right? Like, that's the thing we get all juiced up about. It's not learning. It's not but that's we're in the precipice of that. We're going to be engaged in that process. So we have two members of the APFO committee. A board member, Jennifer Mallow, is one of our team members, Mr. Dan Lubley, who's not here, sits on that. Please join me also in welcoming our Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Cornell Brown. Please recognize. Mr. Brown came to us. He's been here. He's probably going to tell us it's like 9 months, 5 days, 6 hours. It's close. 9 months, 27 days, and 14 hours since we first talked this morning. And is a game changer, and insists that we see things differently and we understand the process and we get better data to ourselves, to our citizens, and we lead with the why. So we have, and Dan works with Cornell, part of our team, and they sit on that committee. And then the part that we intersect most directly with is that schools test and our school capacity, how we use our schools. We really want to maximize the use of our schools so that when we make a difficult decision with limited dollars, we're deciding on capital projects that align to with our best thinking, making sure that we're using all that we have. Because it's hard to go to the state with a straight face and say, we need money. And we're sitting, we have a school that's at 70% capacity sitting next to a school that's 130% capacity. They want us to smooth that out and and engage in our work before they sign off or agree that that's a good expense. So we look within policy and procedure. Our policy says that if schools are between less than 90% enrolled or over 110% enrolled, that sends up a flare, and we should start paying attention, and we notify and work with the board and say, hey, these schools are outside of our policy-driven guidelines. And then they charge the team to come back and engage in a conversation about that. And one of the first things we do a lot of things, but one of the things we do is we look at those schools and we look left and right at adjacent districts, and we say, is there room? Are there either easy fixes? Redistricting is not easy. It's a very emotional process. When you dislocate students from their neighborhood school, if they've been there, that's an emotional process. We take it seriously, but that's an immediate solution. Are there immediate solutions, or are some longer range? Like we think about the southwestern part of our county, Hammond Elementary School would check a box, send up a flare, and yet there are no adjacent schools with the kind of capacity that would permit us to do the immediate fix. So we got to look towards elementary school 43 or 44 and other ways to provide relief there, right? So that just takes a little bit more time. So we do that. We work with our board. They define the scope of the work. We'll come back to them in July. And before we go back, we engage people that are likely to be impacted, start engaging you. So thank you for showing up. We put together 1, 2, 3 recommendations for them to consider. And as they consider those things, they start to engage public hearing, and we start providing rationale. Obviously, anybody who's in threat, whose children are threatened by the process or are likely to be relocated, tend to engage and show up. And then we just kind of hold our breath to the degree to which that can be civil, because it really creates a space where we're starting to pit community member against community member. And so the tone and tenor matters. We'll see some scrutiny again, sometimes across community. That's the least good look for Howard County, because we aspire to be something that sometimes we're not in those spaces. So I'll make a plea to the community when we get to that space to show up in our best selves for all our full community. I'm the superintendent for all 57,000 students, not just some, and all of the programs and the 9,000 employees that work in it, right? So. And the other thing that happens sometimes is we'll start scrutinizing the process and the judgment and sometimes the professionalism of those making decisions. It's human nature. It's okay. So we're going to be available to you. We're going to conduct ourselves in ways that are completely transparent and answer questions and try to be as fulfilling to you as need be through the process. And in the end, the board's going to make a decision, and we're going to execute operationally on that decision, taking care of and making sure that we are supporting anybody impacted, because that's our responsibility. That's the right thing to do. So that's kind of how that process works. We're in it right now, as I mentioned, in the middle of all those steps. And in July, we'll get an update. We'll come back with the board with some more information throughout the fall, and by Thanksgiving, they'll have a decision that we'll have to operate on just after that. So, as I said, a much more dry, less profound speech, but on topic. I do want to thank Karina, who invited me and asked me to be part of this group, and everybody here for showing up. I've asked, a lot of people in this room, and if I haven't, I'm asking you now to sort of help us build the school system our students deserve, knowing that I don't have all the answers. If we did, then we'd be a great school system already. We're an impressive school system. I don't subscribe to hyperbolic comments about our future, where we are, where we're not going to be. I think our kids do fine. Some of our kids do amazing. Some are exemplary. Some we're not meeting. Some might be better served by living in a different district, a neighboring district, right? And so we can't claim the title of greatness, so we're great for every student. Karina has shown up. When I've asked, Kat, many of you in here have shown up and been part of that committee. So I want you to understand that when you're on that, it's not just passing time. I'm not checking boxes. We need to think differently, and that starts with you being in the room than us listening. So thank you for showing up. This is me showing up for you, for all of us, but this is where the work is. Schools and school systems are about the community, the work that's done in the community and with the community, and I'm just grateful for you being here and giving me a chance to connect. Cornell and I can sort of tag team the Q&A. Is it time, Stu? I don't mean to take over the program, but is this time for questions or okay, later we're going to do that. All right, thank you so much.
We appreciate it. Thank you. Your commitment is beyond belief, sir, and it's deeply, deeply appreciated for the education of all students to do the best that we can. So you're an asset and then some. You can pay me later.
Yeah, pay you later.
Where's Delegate Wu? There he is. We just got a new member, Delegate Wu. I just want to recognize you, sir, and thank you for taking action on some of our things that we like to have, requests. So it's been deeply appreciated, sir. We can try to do what we can. We don't necessarily get action, but we can try to get action, and you've done that, sir. Thank you. I want to introduce, where's Lisa? Yeah. Lisa Markovitz. She is going to be talking about APFO. APFO, I had the pleasure of being on the APFO committee back in 2016. Lisa had it in 2016, and now she's a glutton for punishment. I didn't say that, did I? Yeah. Any event, she's now on this APFO committee. She's going to tell you all about APFO, and then after that, we're going to have questions, and we'll wrap it up. And I think there's some pizza left, so help yourself to it during the talk, and we appreciate everybody being here. Lisa?
Hi. So thank you, Stu. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you to our elected officials who took the time to come out. Thank you to our wonderful speakers who are here. I see that Delegate Chow Wu has joined us. Thank you, Chow. Hi. So my name is Lisa Markovitz, and I'm the president of the People's Voice, a civic and political entity in Howard County and Montgomery County. I am very blessed and pleased to be vice president of this organization, HCCA, and I'm currently sitting on the county's Adequate Public Facilities Ordinance Review Committee. There's a mouthful. That's an appointed committee. So what is APFO? APFO is a county regulation that determines the timing of development. And most of the people in this room are pretty familiar with what APFO is, but I'm going to quickly go through just what it is. It's a set of ordinances that looks at residential projects for new residential units to be built in development, and it kind of looks at where they're going and tries to pace infrastructure around new growth. And it's hard to balance those things, of course. And one of the biggest aspects of APFO is whether or not projects that are going to be coming near very overcapacity schools should be held up or not. Our current APFO is reviewed every 10 years. We just had what's called the general plan, which was HOCO by design. That was done a year ago. And by law, within a year of every general plan, which is basically the county looking at land use and creating new goals for the next 10 years as to what land use should be. And that work was completed. And so the APFO committee then has to be re-looked at after every general plan. We started last August. We're on like meeting 19-ish. And our final report is due to the county. The county executive and the county council will get our recommendation list this August. So, like I said, one of the most debated and contentious issues in APFO is what they call the school test. When a project is being proposed to be built in residential new units in the county, there are tests that it has to pass in order to be able to begin and not be delayed. And so what happens is you have elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, and what these percentages mean is every year, the school system provides to the county council something called the capacity chart. It lists all of the schools in every single school, how many students can fit in that school, in the brick and mortar building. And then the denominator, of course, is how many schools are actually there, including in the trailers everywhere, wherever they happen to be that they're enrolled in that school. And so then you look at the elementary, middle, and high schools, and if that overcapacity number of more kids in the school than the capacity is rated as the school, by 105, 110, 115, if those districted schools near the project that's proposed, it's considered constrained, it's considered the trigger then to halt the development. And each year a new capacity chart comes out, and the projects would then be tested again if they were being halted by any one of those events. And they can only be held up for a maximum of 4 years, and then they move forward. And that is the current APFO school test. There are some exemptions to our current school tests, some single lot issues there that you can see. If something is redeveloped and a site already exists and it's not adding a new unit, or if it's adding more, then it's just the net, so it has to be new units to apply. There is no school capacity test for age-restricted units, 55 plus, and certain payment in lieu of taxes and low-income housing unit affordable housing types are exempted from the weight part of APFO. They still pay school surcharges with age restriction and affordable housing at lower rates, but they do not have the weight on them, but only when the county council per project puts in a resolution, has a public hearing, and votes on that, and lets that happen. The committee has made some recommendations. Like I said, we've met 19 times over the past almost year. We have several more meetings to go, and we have more things that we're going to be addressing. But for now, the biggest, most talked about recommendation that the committee has passed, meaning a motion to pass it to be a recommendation, is to replace the APFO school test with something called a utilization premium payment, UPP, fee schedule. There will be no more wait times anywhere in the county in any way. And instead, residential units will be charged an additional fee calculated by applying a UPP factor, which I will explain, that will be in addition to the existing school charge that's paid. And it will be a percentage of that over and above the school charge that this is being proposed. And by non-voluntary, what I mean there is that the recommendation from the committee is such that developers would not be picking and choosing whether they would rather wait than pay. This would be something that would be no waits and everybody pays. Okay, and the way that is implemented and how the charges are derived is that projects are fit into tiers that are with some familiar numbers here. If you're but instead of elementary 105, middle school 110, high school 115, what they have changed in this recommendation is that any of elementary or middle or high school that's at any of these numbers, they are then in those tiers. And I'll explain this in more detail in another slide. But the tier notation is for the project districted to what elementary school, what middle school, what high school. And then the project's 3 schools will each have a tier. And let me go through the rest, because I probably might answer your question, and then I'll take it. In tier 1, let's go to the next page. In tier 1, the maximum charges are 40% of the premium payment. That's 40% of the surcharge in addition to the surcharge. For tier 2, 80%. For tier 3, 120%. Within each tier, there are portions of charges, and I'm going to show you a chart to make it much more clear in a moment. The total possible maximum extra payment that a project would pay on its units is 120% of the current fee, which means they pay the fee, then 120% of the fee, so they're paying 220% of the fee. That would be a maximum. Now, this next slide hopefully will be a little more clear about how this actually works. And after I talk about this slide, I'll take a question. So if you have a project that has an elementary school that is over 105, it's getting charged an extra 18.46%. If it's over 110, it's in tier 2, it's got the 36. If you have a middle school that's in one of these tiers, that's an additional cumulative charge. So wherever you fit on this tier, wherever your high school is, either not in the tier because it's under 105 over capacity, so it wouldn't have weighted anyway, there's no extra charge. If it's tier 1 means 105 over, tier 2 means 110 over, tier 3 is 115 plus over capacity. Wherever that school district is that the project's proposed to be near, it adds every one of these together for each elementary, middle, or high school that exists. It adds those together. And that's the premium payment that's being proposed to replace the school weight. If there's still a question about this, there are some. Let me take.
What's the project? What is the project?
Oh, I'm talking about development project for new residential units to be built. Sorry, thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Drew.
So, as you know, I live in Elfreth, where we have no high school.
Yes.
So, we have no high school in Elkridge, which is 1/6 of the county population. Is growth in Elkridge for decades has been used to justify adding high school capacity somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So all our students in Elkridge have long bus rides to distant high schools and no high school of our own. Mm-hmm. Am I hearing you correctly that these payments are not associated with the area where the growth occurs or has occurred, but instead is associated with the school?
Well, there's a difference between how the amount that's going to be charged is derived and where the money goes that's being collected. So I'm going to answer both those questions.
Okay, because I'm very concerned that this is another scam where the money doesn't go to where we need it in Elkridge, where we have no high school.
I understand. And I'm here to tell you what the committee has done. I did not vote for this. And the reason I didn't vote for this is because I felt like the amounts that were going to be collected were not actually going to hasten the provision of capacity. and that those weights help the school system. And I was very concerned about completely eliminating them. And I kind of liked a hybrid situation better that was not addressed and didn't this passed. And I know that we need more money in the school system, that a lot of people say, well, we have the wait, but what happens during the wait? We're not really getting more money while the wait's going on. And so some people were persuaded that getting more money was a good thing. And it is a good thing, but I kind of liked a little combination going on better. Like, I liked the idea of more money for more overcrowding, but I didn't want to eliminate the wait. So just want to not shoot the messenger here, but anyway, let me finish. I want to answer Drew's question better. Thank you. So with regard to how this is derived, it is derived by a development project's districted school, no matter how far away it might be from the development project. It goes by the tier definition and how much the overcharge is. It is derived from whatever that project's districted closest elementary, middle, and high school are, where those kids in that project that's coming will go to school. And it's not necessarily the closest one to it, but it's where they're districted at the time that this hits is defining. And to answer your second part of your question that I assume you were implying about, well, where does the money go that's being collected? We discussed at great length, and it did not pass, to have the money go to the school that is in the overcrowded area that is deriving the fee. And that did not pass. So it is going to go to the school system, not just be in the general budget, but it is not going to specific schools.
That's not a bad thing, right? Because we're in a situation now where the growth has already occurred in Elfridge. We have no schools. We don't need to wait for more growth to occur in Elfridge to get a school. But we're assigned to fill up seats in distant schools that are not overcrowded, right? So if new growth somewhere else requires capacity somewhere else, they're essentially jumping in line in front of us who have no school, even though the growth in our community has already occurred, right? So that's not a bad thing to vote down. It should be that we build high schools where there are no schools, where more students travel farther to their assigned school than anywhere else.
Understand.
So,
thank you. I think this gentleman here. Okay, thank you.
Wait.
We're recording and we can't afford it.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Mike. I'm just a regular resident in Ellicott City.
Thank you.
Can you help me understand in terms of actual dollars, like what the base fee is? Because then you're saying 120% on tier 3. So
Sure.
say you're building like a 100-unit new community. What's that base fee? And then now you multiply it times 120. Because I'm just trying to understand if that extra amount here is actually compensating for a lot of the hitting costs of like redistricting and a lot of added costs of overcrowding in other schools that, I don't know. Can you help me just give me an example?
Sure. What the current fee surcharge is that everyone pays regardless of how crowded anything is near a project is $8.15 a square. Yeah, it's the next slide. But anyway, $8.15 per square foot. We're a little different in Howard County. Most counties charge by unit, some even by bedrooms numbers, but we charge by square foot. So you'd have to say to yourself, okay, at 2,000, is that an average square foot? And that equals X amount. So it's $8.15 a square foot is our current school charge. It does increase every year with inflation, and that is our current number for 2026. And so you take that amount, $8.15 a square foot, and wherever you would hit in these, you add each place where the project fit in this chart and add the percentage of what that, every unit that's coming, every square foot is multiplied by $8.15. That equals X, like for the whole project, right? And then that whole amount is multiplied by these percentages as an additional figure. Does that answer your question?
Okay, so look, I'm not a math person, so $18.50 times like a 3,000.
Sir?
815.
Oh, 8.50. Okay, say it again.
$8.15 a square.
$8.15. That's even worse. Okay.
Yes.
$8.15 times a 3,000 square foot apartment times call it 100 units. That's $2.5 million. And then is that the math?
3,000 would be kind of big. But
Okay,
if you just took an average when you're just talking, I have had developers tell me that 2,000 was a normal average because you've got some smaller stuff and some big homes. So if you just took 2,000 times 815, and you had however many units you have, say it's 100 units, then yeah, that's how much it is now.
Yeah.
That's how much it is now.
So 1.6 million, and then you'd multiply that times 120 to get the extra.
Wherever it would
fee.
hit in here, you would add that percentage up.
Okay. It doesn't seem like a lot, is it? Is that why you voted no, or?
Yes.
No.
One of the reasons that I said no is because if you look at calculating the amount of money that data can be derived as to an impact fee, like how many students is a project adding to the school system. And that's debated heavily over time. How long does it take? How many? How long do you count a house as new? And so there's a lot of issues there. But if you look at that and you say, this is how much money a new student costs, and then you look at this, and it's not really, that's why I call it not hastening provision of capacity increases for the buildings. Because by the time you get enough money to renovate or add a school, it's just a really small percentage of what you need. Deb, you had...
Thank you, Ms. Markovitz. And, she and I are on the same page about how we feel about this UPP. Thank you for taking the vote that you did. It's never popular to be in the minority. I know. I've been there for 6.5 years. So I do want to remind people, none of this happens until it comes before the county council.
Right.
And that means there has to be legislation to put this before the county council. And that means 3 people have to vote for it. And I can tell you, I'm really tired of being in the minority, but I would love it if any of you are here from District 5, District 2, or District 3, if you spoke very loudly to your council members when the time comes, because we will need every voice to make sure that our school district, I'm coming up front, so you all don't have to turn around. I want to make sure that our school district is well funded. I've spent the last year on a task force called HB 1450, where I fought and fought and fought for just a little bit more capital funding. You would think I was asking for the sun and the moon and the stars. I finally gave up, and on our last meeting last week, I said that we will be 3 of us. Where's Karina? Where'd you go? Thank you very much to our PTAC President Terry Marcus, our State Senator Katie Hester, and myself will be submitting an addendum report to that school capital report that you will be seeing for HB 1450. I can guarantee you, this is not enough money for our schools. It is not enough. Cornell, how much does it cost to build an elementary school today? $495 a square foot.
40 million.
$40 million to build an elementary school. Depending on the size. How much does it cost to build a high school?
100. Yeah.
Oh yeah, well the last one we built, Guilford Park, 200 million? No.
That's
100 million without the land. So it was about 110 million. Yeah.
$139 million plus $19 million for the land.
How do you like that? I knew somebody in this group would know that. But the real point is, school construction is incredibly expensive. And there are two reasons for this. One is because of inflation. You all are well aware of what's going on with inflation right now, and it's only going to get worse with these tariffs. And number two, our state has put in an amazing number of regulations that school districts have to follow when they are building new schools, which make it even more expensive to build schools than it does just a regular commercial building. So that makes it exceptionally expensive to build schools. None of this takes that into account. This takes one thing into account. What do you think that one thing is? No wait times, the desire of the developer to move as quickly as possible. That's what it takes into account. Just remember, this has to come before the county council. And keep in mind, we need 3.
Thank you, Jen. You know what?
We keep the one that we have in place right now, which is a wait period.
Okay. I asked what happens if this gets voted down? What's the alternative?
The alternative for now is that we would keep what we have in place, which is a 4-year wait period unless the school opens up. So if the school no longer is overcrowded, if the 108% elementary school goes down to 105, and the other 2 schools are not over capacity, then the developer can move ahead. That's what we have right now. And if that doesn't happen, and there are many areas where that hasn't happened, where the schools have stayed overcrowded or over capacity, as we say in this world, if the schools stay over capacity for all 4 years, then the developer can move ahead with their project.
So do you send this committee back to the drawing board?
No, they're done.
What was the motivation for the committee to begin with?
What was it? I can't imagine.
Well,
what do you think that motivation was? Actually, it's in the law. In order for the developers to be able to revisit this every 10 years when we do a new general plan, so they can fool around with the APFO and try and make it so that it works better for them?
So there are 15 members of the review committee that, by law, this committee has to exist after every general plan. The county does a general plan to look at land use goals and change some regulations sometimes. And so this committee sits, and it's appointed by county executive, county council. There's a board of ed member and some other members. There are 15 of us, and it's a pretty big cross section of positions and types of folks on there. And some of the stuff that is being recommended I agree with, and some I don't, and I have some other stuff to go through, but we can take a couple questions and then I'd like to finish up.
Hey, and I'm sorry, but it's more of a statement than a question. I'm taking off my hat as a HCCA board member, executive vice president of PTAC, but as a mother in District 1 who has a child attending the highest capital needs middle school, this kids for sale setup is offensive, to say the least. And I'm so glad somebody was astute enough to ask the question, how much does it cost to build a school? So when you have developers and housing advocates and people like that saying, this is wonderful, this is going to get us extra money. When you're talking $1, $2, $3 million to literally have no wait time, that means no matter what capacity the schools are, the kids could be hanging from the rafters. Development will move through, and we will get $1 or $2 or $3 million for a school at the elementary level that costs about $35 million. This is a kids for sale setup, and to a parent that is in an overcrowded school that we have been continuously bumped down the capital budget program, this is offensive. And I shared District 1 with Drew Roth. We do not have a high school, and we also have a high school that is the highest capital needs project in District 1 with Centennial High School. And I just have to speak out very publicly on this proposal, and I hope that this community steps up and supports our children when it comes time for the county council to legislate APFO. So I'm sorry, but I just had to make that statement because my child is living this every day. Thank you.
This is Dick Bolton. I have to say, this is a lot of fancy footwork that doesn't solve the problem. The problem that could be solved very simply, and that is to continue APFO and take the time limit out. So nothing is built until there's a school there that can accommodate the new housing. This is just, it looks like it was written by the developers, and will probably be approved by the people who get their campaign contributions from the developers.
Hi, Ginny Thomas. Just a couple of quick questions. One, is this title of this bill pay to play? Were there any developers or how many of them on this task force? And then the last question is, was there any consideration to including hospital and emergency room services in a development? Because you do exclude 55 plus community, but we got a serious problem there. Was there any even move to include that?
There will be. And if I'm going to finish my presentation because I might answer a lot of questions and save time. So let me move forward with the rest of my presentation, and then let's take questions, because I want questions to be available for the superintendent as well. The answer is yes, there are people who want to make motions with regard to the things you mentioned, Ginny. We have not voted on those yet. Okay, so next slide. The committee did vote to not have new exemptions in UPP. There are things I mentioned earlier about having exemptions to the school weight, and there are fees that I mentioned are lower for affordable and senior age restricted projects. Pay that surcharge a lower amount. It ranges from $132 to $4. And so since they have such a lower surcharge to begin with, the committee voted to not exempt them from the extra charges because they're based on such a lower amount. Now, UPP pros and cons that we've already talked about a little bit. The current system has wait times that can apply differently with regard to determining how crowded the schools are, whether or not they have to wait. But when you get over 115, it doesn't make you wait longer the more crowded the schools are. And it also charges the same exact surcharge for everyone, no matter what. So some people who like this have felt that that is a pro, that the more crowded it is, the more you pay, and people don't all pay the same amount. The cons that we have partly discussed is eliminating the wait will likely create more overcapacity and faster. And the fees, as we've stated, and was one of my reasons for saying no, I do not believe are enough to get us provision of more school capacity any faster. One of the things that you all are going to like that the committee did was recommend some different road test issues. There's pedestrian crossings, like your nearest crosswalk. A lot of people have talked about sidewalks to nowhere, that the project doesn't go far enough, and so we've recommended that they extend to the next intersection, not just X amount of space down the road. These are subject to caps, of course, and there's an exemption that went with that motion of not applying to 5 peak trips per hour, so really smaller projects would not have to do this. And also there was disability access to the nearest bus stop was also, now these are fundings, these are not holding up a development as new tests for capacity issues, they are just fees. So projects will be paying to create the accessibility further down the road than they are now in these two areas of intersection and bus stops. So that was a nice thing. Next, the Affordable Housing Work Group came to us to advise on their findings and advise the APFO review committee of what they would like to see us do. And they want to define affordable housing in the county, 60 to 120% of Howard County's median income for sale housing, which could be defined as affordable housing, and 0 to 60% for rental housing. The county's moderate income housing unit program, they look at 80% as being affordable to 80% is a moderate. And what that does is a lot of zones in the county have to provide 10 to 15% of their units to be affordable to 80% moderate income. 80% of the moderate income. And that means that those prices of those units would have to be lowered to be affordable to this measurement. So if you raised 60 to 120% for the sale, the concern on the Kohn here is that those moderate income housing units will be more expensive than they are now. And the pro that was stated by the Housing Committee was that, well, more people can apply and more people can be assisted by it. This passed the committee as well. Okay, and just a few more comments. This is the last slide. The timing of the possible changes. This came up, just wanted to end with this. Our committee is just making recommendations. We are existing by law, and we will have our report due by law in the end of August of this year. That report will be given to the county executive and the county council. And it will be up to the county executive and county council to look at that, digest it, decide what if they want to do or what they don't want to do. There's absolutely nothing that makes them have to even create legislation out of our recommendations at all. They're just taking them into consideration with whatever legislation they will so choose to do, plus, minus, sideways on APFO. And so we don't know when that would happen. It's not like the law says, oh, you need new legislation at all, much less in a certain amount of time. So my guess is if they feel that goals that want to be met by the county with regard to APFO will be met by the current council, then you will see this next year. And if not, then it won't be, because next year is an election year. And so we don't really know exactly whose positions are what. So as we go into this election year, or if legislation does drop by the current county executive and current county council, I urge you to pay attention. I'm thrilled to be on the board of HCCA. A lot of us sit on other boards as well, and we will be keeping people apprised as to when and if that happens, that new legislation will be coming, when it's coming. And otherwise, if you don't hear of that, to give your input when you want to do that, and that doesn't happen, just be very mindful of the candidates for county council and county executive, and make sure that you ask them the questions that will make you comfortable that you know their positions on APFO. And I thank you so much for your time. And I'm going to sit over here with Superintendent Barnes so that you all can ask some more questions for about another 30 or so minutes we have before we have to clean up the room and be out before 9. Okay? Thank you so much.
Just a little reminder, if you aren't on the mic, we aren't hearing you on the recording. Please,
And I want to thank an individual who's not only doing the video, Mr. Brent Lovelace, but Brent Lovelace is also on the APFO committee. He was on the APFO committee back when I was on it, and Mr. Lovelace believes in everything, just about everything, that we believe in. And he's actually been an advocate for us, and it's deeply appreciated, Brent. I mean that. Okay, we're gonna, before you hold up, because Mr. Barnes has gotten off very easily thus far.
She doesn't want me to come back.
You can come back, sir, anytime. I'll even pay you. Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to ask one question, HCCA, to Superintendent Barnes, and then it'll be a free-for-all after that. Superintendent Barnes, do you believe the current adequate public facilities ordinance is working as far as school capacity is concerned?
Yeah, what I can say is we don't receive the funding necessary to keep up with deferred maintenance and building and our aging facilities. And so we just need a model and we're not alone. We're not unique. As you heard the council or Congresswoman mention earlier, it's a state and national problem, but we will need additional capital dollars. We're working hard to make sure that we have the right data, that's defensible. We're going to go through a sufficiency study just to put an end to some of the gray areas. When you get into gray areas, you're susceptible to who's speaking the loudest or who has the biggest sign. And we really need to have a defensible, research-affirmed, data-driven process. Mr. Brown's going to lead that process, and so no. It's a long-winded answer to say no, but we're working to make sure that as we seek that funding, we can make it crystal clear what our needs are, map that out on a 50-year cycle, because this isn't a surprise. Guilford Park High School is in its second year, and as Mr. Brown says, in 23 years, it'll need a roof. 48 years, it's going to need a full major renovation. So let's get it on the list and move forward. But right now, the funding model is not sufficient.
Hi, great presentation. I've learned a lot as the VP of Advocacy. I used to be the VP of Issues, and then they changed it to Advocacy, but I still have issues. So on PTAC. I am now the incoming PTA president of PTAC. So I'm very heartened to hear what you guys are talking about. I testified last night. It was very disappointing that that PTAC did not have a representative on the APFO review committee. I mean, of all the organizations that represent our schools and our students, for us not to have a formal representative on there is very disappointing.
Let me just address that real quick. 10 years ago, when they did APFO last time and updated it after that, it was put into the ordinance who would have the ability to sit on that committee. So that's when that was decided, and so that's why it's not there.
Maybe that should change. I'd like to ask, last night it came up about the pre-K numbers and how they are not reflected in when this was adopted, the school capacity. And I understand that's a regional issue, but we have whole fifth grade classes that are being moved into portables. We have half of their blacktop being taken by pre-K playground equipment that that the other kids are not allowed to play on. I agree with you. I find it concerning that the health is not coming up because we are seeing significant wait times. I also think how much conversation was being done when it comes to our roads, because I live in District 5. Hello. I don't know how many people are from there, but we've had 9 fatalities in 3 weeks on going from 70 onto the exit of 32. Because our slow lane is completely backed up because we have so many people returning to full-time in-person work. And our data is out of place. So I just feel like we're working with the wrong data, and I'm wondering, what problem are they trying to solve that they think all of these fancy formulas will do?
We have more motions that we're going to be hearing. They're not all going to be heard, unfortunately, because they did take an enormous amount of time up with this, and they weren't actually going to talk about the existing system and what if the council didn't want to do this UPP, and we needed to take our responsibility of all the work we're doing to address, well, we wouldn't possibly want to amend the current system. So others and I pushed to make sure that we address the current system and not just this. And so we do have a few meetings left, and we do have motions that will be heard about adding other tests or not to APFO. To your one question, there is a motion that talks about adding pre-K to capacity numbers that will be discussed. I can't promise that all these things are going to happen because I can't control the agenda, but it's there as far as what motions exist that haven't been heard yet. Don't know how many will be heard, but it's there. Now, with regard to your roads comments, the roads you mentioned being state roads are a little difficult for Howard County to put restrictions on things with development.
True, but it's still impacting so many of the
You're absolutely correct. And the local roads that have to do with APFO, that have to do with projects and have to do with failure, A, B, C, D, E, F, and, you know, and then the traffic studies and counts and all of that of our existing system, they're pretty high failing type numbers that can exist before there are going to be very expensive fees placed on developments to do something about it. So those take a long time because they put money in for that when they have to meet those requirements in a road test. But it's not really always enough to do the work because they don't make them pay for the entire project, right? And even with these extra road fees that were recommended to be done, going a little further, going to the intersection, going to the bus stop, they're going to be capped as well. It's almost like calling it a fee in lieu of doing the expense of the whole remediation that's needed, because if the cap's there and you pay in and the projects pay in and it's not enough to do it, they're paying in, but they can't do it until they have enough money to do it, you know, until the budget's there to do it. So it's kind of adding in, just like the UPP. The money's going in, but it's not really enough to do anything. So it's like it's going in, and then you hope it's going to somehow help, but it's not enough. So it's the same thing with the roads. It's just not enough money.
Thank you all for being here. I'm just a concerned Howard County parent, and my question is for Superintendent Barnes. I really appreciate you being here. I kind of have like a hot topic question, and I just wanted to know regarding enrollment and capacity projections. How can you explain how your office works with office work planning, and just talk about the details of accountability, accuracy, reliability of the enrollment capacity projections? This is something that impacts thousands upon thousands of families, and I think it's very important that we highlight that we actually talk about that, discuss that, and the intricacies and the specificities of it. And I think, you know, it's all Howard County, we're all under one umbrella, and I just want to hear what you have to say. Thank you.
Yes, I'll take that. Cornell Brown, Chief Operating Officer for Howard County Public School System. Our Office of Planning and Construction is responsible for using student survival data as they matriculate through the school system to determine what that cohort survival number is, to determine what the projections are to be, right? So from an accuracy standpoint, we work with the Maryland Department of Planning to have the state of Maryland review our enrollment projections and bounce them against theirs to ensure that we're within the margin of error that the state of Maryland requires. So each year, every local education agency within the state of Maryland is required to submit their enrollment projections to the Maryland Department of Planning and have their enrollment projections verified based on their cohort survival method that they use. And I have to say here, we're always within less than that 5% difference range that they propose, and it's actually less than 1% is what we have been performing over the last few years. So from an accuracy standpoint, we're on point. Now with the Department of Planning and Zoning, we produce the pupil yield data. They give us their residential data. We look at students and where they come from over time to develop, the pupil yield from elementary, middle, high schools, and then we share that information so that they can look at their residential planning and put that into their plan. So that's really, the long and short of it. And to back up again, from an accuracy standpoint, we're always well within what the state of Maryland requires.
And so thanks for the question. I think that goes to something I was touching on earlier. I mean, we want those kinds of questions and to understand what we might provide to build that kind of public trust around the process. Post-COVID, we've been less accurate than pre-COVID. Pre-COVID, extremely accurate projections over a 10-year run and period. But even post-COVID, it's well within a margin, still less than 1%. But so it's a really good question. Kat had another part of your question, and Cornell, you can jump in on the relevant part. Talking about pre-kindergarten, which doesn't count towards capacity as we look at schools, and that's incompatible with Maryland's blueprint for the future, which is requiring a bold move, and an appropriately bold move, towards full-day pre-kindergarten for all income-eligible 4-year-olds and 3-year-olds. So one of the things that we are grappling with in Howard County is space. Like, not only do we have programming in all but 10 elementary schools, the question I'm constantly asking is, where are we going to go as we start to fold in our 3-year-olds? So I would anticipate in the next 5 years is that as we start to realize fully that piece of legislation, having pre-kindergarten programs in every school. When we open Faulkner Ridge, people say, well, Faulkner Ridge, that's going to be 12 or 13 classrooms for 3-year-olds. That's not the kind of capacity boon that it sometimes I think we talk about it as, but it will certainly help, and so we continue to think about programming in that way, like how do we compensate for that? Other districts build much larger pre-kindergarten, early childhood facilities. Some convert their elementary schools to primary grade schools and intermediate grade schools. So pick any 2 elementary schools in this district and imagine them serving all kindergarten through 2nd grade students in their combined districts in the other side, because of the specialized needs, or let's say early childhood through 2nd grade, because instructionally and developmentally that makes more sense, but that's not the way we do it here. So there's a lot of different models we're going to be considering. It certainly would help if those projections, since that number is going to increase eventually. Right now it's decreasing. Do you know that? Like, for us to go to full day kindergarten, it means we have to use the existing classrooms and make them full day, which means we're serving a little more than half the students that we would serve in some spaces. And so we're growing the spaces, but it'll be a while before the spaces catch up. And we're serving all students who are eligible, but it means that some students who are taking advantage of the benefit, who are not income eligible, are going to be squeezed out in the coming years. So said a lot there. We've got a lot of work to do on that front, but it would be helpful if that counted towards capacity ratings.
Do you mind? I just wanted to follow up, Mr. Brown. You said the 1% margin of error. Is that, and I'm sorry if I missed this, but is that for the total Howard County, or is that school by school?
That's the total.
Okay.
But they do evaluate and compare school by school.
Mm-hmm.
But when you start looking at what you project to be your enrollment throughout the entire school district,
okay,
that's for the entire school district.
And I understand post-COVID or during pandemic things
Yes.
were hard to predict, but how have the margins of errors been by particular schools? Or is that something that's
I don't
available?
have that off the top of my head.
Fair.
I'll have to go back and take a look at, exactly how each school pocket. But our projections have been, well within, reasonable, accuracy.
Okay.
So we haven't been far off when we said, okay, this is what we expect to see, with COVID aside. Right. So now we're starting to normalize, and looking at our enrollment projections, we've declined. We're starting, we've flattened out, and now we're projecting that we're going to decline. But the thing that I think we keep skipping over, and Superintendent Barnes, started to touch on it, is our school facilities. They were, many of our buildings were designed in 1970s. And now they're being asked, our buildings themselves, being asked to support programs in 2025. So not only are we talking about your standard general education requirements, but now you have expanding pre-K, you have wraparound services and some other programs that wasn't initially intended for the building. So what we are doing is over the next year and a half, we're doing a program sufficiency evaluation so that we look at our buildings to determine how they're performing relative to the needs of the programs and the spaces so that we can identify the additional requirements that we need to account for above and beyond how old the roof is. And then when we start to plan for our capital development program will say, here's the age of the building or the facilities condition of the building, and here is how the building is performing from a space standpoint or the space sufficiency index, and then we can determine how deficient a building is and what the needs are, and then start to do better planning with that data to define what our long-term capital needs are, to include enrollment, to include program, to include building condition, and other factors that we're going to discover. So that's planning that we are ready to begin. And then we'll be able to have a different conversation once we have all this information, in our hands and start to, use the data to determine what the needs of the school district is.
Hi. Yeah, hi, Superintendent Barnes. I have one question for you and one quick question for you, Mr. Cornell. One, why do you call your senior staff cabinet? And secondly, do you track school maintenance costs by school? And so I can, if I wanted to look and see what the annual maintenance cost and see which ones have the higher maintenance cost, which might mean they need attention. Thank you.
So it wasn't just a structural convention. Different school districts do it different ways. Most school districts have a superintendent's cabinet as a typical naming convention for its executive leadership. In the previous structure, our superintendent's cabinet was 20 to 30 people. I don't call that the cabinet. That's more of an executive leadership team. But in my cabinet, in addition to the general counsel, communications director, and our human resource executive officer, all the chiefs of the divisions that have significant supervisory and leadership responsibility. So it's the team that the big decisions flow up to and ideas that's charged to execute on the strategic plan. So just a convention that, as I came in and looked around and sought counsel from other superintendents who've been doing it some time, that we adopted. So to answer your question, Cornell, you had.
Yeah, maintenance costs by schools. We do not have that report generated yet, but we are compiling our data to include that. So that is coming, but we don't have that information readily available.
My question is for Lisa. So this is around defining, I think, for all of us a little bit, or clarifying. At the last APFO review committee on June 4th, I was really super excited to hear the discussion around adjusting what defines new school generation, whether it is primarily from new development or from resales. And I think that's an important thing to define, and the information needs to be more widely spread because there's a lot of misinformation, whether it's intentional, don't know how to read it, that's circulating through the community. And I'll read one. This is from the Howard County Housing Affordability Coalition, and it reads as fact: the majority, 83% of new HC PSS students come from the turnover of existing homes. In other words, resale. New homes, new development, only account for 17% of students. It does not provide a time frame, it does not define it, but it claims that new development only attributes 17% of new students to our school system. So what I'm asking you, because you are expert, and I thank you for being here and sharing this, is number one, if you can define the resale and new development and help us all understand that more clearly. And also if you can point out the financial impact of that type of misinformation and what it means for our school system.
Okay. So you mentioned the last meeting. I think what you're referring to is in my zeal to make sure that we talked about more than UPP, they allowed me to do a summarization of motions that were left to do. And I presented one that was close to my heart and talked about wanting to have a motion heard in the review committee that in the capacity chart, in the APFO ordinance, it does require the school system to provide the information about sources of new students. And for years, I've kind of been asking about how one says how many students are in the system from new development. And new development is defined differently by different people. And Tim Rogers was very helpful to me over the years, and he did tell me how it's done. And that was confirmed that it was still that way in our current committee meetings, and Jeff Brunel with DBZ also confirmed that is what they're told as well. And what it is every year the school system defines a set of students who are new to the system that year. So here are all the new students. Then within that set of new students to the system, any students who come from an occupancy permit, that is, I'm going to generously say a year, it's really 10 months, but let's just call it less than a year old. If you are from an occupancy permit that is less than a year old, then you are in the bin of coming from new development. And then, but that's just the percentage of kids from a 1-year-old max home that year new to the school system. And then the next year, when they determine that same percentage, they're not taking a label of all the kids who were that way before. It's just a snapshot each year of here are the new kids to the school system, and here are the number of kids who are new to the school system who are from less than a year old home. And we have heard from DBZ and various things that we were told in the review committee that, it does take time for a project to populate its students. And so the motion that I want to do, that I hope gets heard, is I would like that capacity chart sourcing data to not define a brand new home as just a year-old home. Like, actually, Superintendent Martirano a couple of years ago did a press release to tell the county, this is not how many students are in the school system from new development. He was like really clear. He wanted people to understand that, yeah, there's this data in what is the feasibility study right now, which is going to change. But anyway, the data that was provided, that's, like I said, I'll say it again, this year's new students, the number of this year's new students who come from a less than year-old home is this percentage. And people take that percentage and they say, that's the number of kids in the whole school system from a development. And, it's really not. Because obviously, if it's only that description that I've now said 3 times, I'm sorry, then it must be, if you wanted to say how many kids are in every grade for every year and define new as, 3 years instead of 1 or something, you can see how it would be more. And your question about how that affects, I can't really answer that, but I can give you an example of something I saw. A few years ago, when the county council did increase these surcharges that used to only be like $2 a square foot, and now they're like $8. Like, we were one of the lowest for decades in growing counties. Montgomery County was like literally 20 times higher than ours for decades. So when they did raise them, and they did raise them significantly, but when they raised them, they started out with data. Okay, here's an impact data of like how much a new kid costs. And then they took that amount, the county council, when they were figuring out what to do with the fees, and they dropped it by that percentage that we're talking about, because it was this notion, well, if there's a resale, we shouldn't charge a fee from what's produced by resales because that's not development. And so it does have very real effects, this mischaracterization of how many kids are from a year-old house in the school system, which you use with certain projections that I am not criticizing in any way. This isn't about projections being accurate. This is about within those projections, how many are labeled this way or that way. And you know, you can see that taking that particular information and saying it's really something else can have far-reaching effects on policymaking and even financial considerations.
Can I double back on the accuracy thing? Because they're not, I can't. Please, Stu, pretty please. Thank you. Because just Educational Facilities Master Plan, it's our new planning document. It's new. And I just realized, I forgot I had it with me. And on page 41, we do break out by school accuracy compared to what projected and what actually showed up. Plus 10, minus 54, plus 28 in elementary schools, just a difference of 141 students, you know, less than 1%. And our planning team, they calculate whether it's 6.2%, 1.1%, 5%, you know, 7/10, whatever, you know, 0.7% by school. And then going to middle school, a difference of 6 throughout the entire school district. And they, you know, track minus 10, plus 34, 0% difference. And in high schools, they're always, you know, the hardest, difference of 254, 1.4%. So, you know, the accuracy. And they have this data from year over year, comparing that. Again, with the pandemic, okay, but now we're starting to get data. We're seeing, you know, we're stabilizing and what the trends are. But yes, that accuracy is within our new Educational Facilities Master Plan. Once the board approves it, it's actually board doc. So right now you can get on board doc. You can see on page 41 and 42, this information is there. Then it's going to be public document at our next board meeting. They're going to approve it or whatever decision they're going to make. And then it's just a public document that everybody will have access to.
Hi, former HCPSS student. I wanted some clarification about affordable housing pricing, because I believe, if I'm remembering the numbers correctly, you said that the pricing for affordable housing comes from 60 to 120% of the median income. That's correct, right?
Proposed definition was to use that for the for sale housing.
Yeah, I'm not mostly concerned about rentals right now. So is there any like incentive or regulation that would require developers to ever price towards the lower end of that percentage? Because I feel like in a for-profit scenario, if you have the option to charge 120%, and there's no incentive to go lower in that range, they would just always charge 120%, continue to make more profit, as well as continuing to get the exemption for the like minimal amount of effort on their part, since affordable housing is exempt from the upcharge, correct?
No, the upcharge doesn't exist yet, and the recommendation about the upcharge is to not exempt them from the upcharge.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
But I mean, if that does, like, if upcharge doesn't currently exist and the exemption, whether or not it exists, doesn't currently exist, but is there any incentive in the affordable housing pricing for the range to ever be at that 60%, or can they just put 120% every time?
Well, the 60 to 120% is a range that's not just going to be a development decision as to what they want to do. It's a complicated system of what types of affordable housing exist. There are payment in lieu of taxes pilot programs where to do lower amounts, like 60%. You see that. That kind of is called now lower income housing units versus moderate income housing units. Right now, the current system, if you're a low income housing unit, it's the 60% mark that you have to hit. And if you're doing a moderate income housing unit, which you see in more market rate developments. Market rate developments, I'm talking about projects that are, most of them are required to do 10 or 15% of the units be moderately priced, right? At that 80%. But when you get to lower amounts, like the 60, that's a low income housing unit project. And usually it's more than half of the project that is doing that. It's It's not like a market project. It's a low-income housing project. And they get the tax incentives and they have these other incentives because they're making less profit. And one of the issues there that happens in the county is that when you allow people to do fees in lieu of providing the modern income, it concentrates it, because for them to lower the price of the house, it's cheaper in some areas than others to make their prices lower. And so they choose to pay the fee instead of lowering the price in higher priced market areas in the county. And that's why you don't see that supply in those areas. But to answer your question as best I can right now, you're not going to see those 60% projects in market rate projects. You're going to see special projects that go through a whole series of government assistance, and they're special ones. And they right now they come before the council on an individual basis to get the weight in school weight exempted.
Thank you. We're going to have 2 more questions after me. Question I have is, how do we prevent redistricting?
I mean, I don't know that you have the authority to prevent redistricting, right? It's within the school system's purview. It's the board's purview. It's the board's policy procedures that looks at, that. Certainly you can advocate for, I think we've had an interesting conversation. I was speaking with Mike a little earlier about what are the benefits, what are the costs educationally. I think that's a worthy debate. When you're talking about nudging numbers, we have policy board. The board has policy that triggers the discussion. We think about it. We talk about it. We think about what's best, the best way to achieve that, and then we go about the business of doing it. So it's a public process. It's meant to be inclusive. It's meant to be informative. We've watched boards do this. We set out to have a significant redistricting of, just right after COVID. I feel like there were proposed to be about 9,000 students impacted. In the end, there were less than 2,000 students that moved, and iteratively, right? So there's always discussions of exemptions and how we manage those processes. But yeah, that's something that's certainly in the Board of Education's purview, the school system's purview. So stopping it, I think, is an unrealistic expectation. Managing, working together through it, partnering through it, that's kind of what I'm hoping to see.
So do you think that APFO should be prevent redistricting?
I mean, whether or not APFO exists, we're always confronted with the question of how we're going to use our space most effectively. We're going to maximize use of space. Regardless of APFO, capacity ratings influence the state's willingness to provide funding for or to deny funding for capital projects. So if we can't demonstrate certain needs and conditions on their market, and Cornell can expound on this, then we just aren't going to, we have to do our part as they see it. So that's been part of our responsibilities, using all of our facilities before seeking new dollars for additional facilities.
I have a different response to how do we stop redistricting. The community just has to stay stagnant and not grow. That is the answer, right? If everything stays the same, there's no change within the community. Old families move out, new families move in. There's no planned growth. Then you will not need redistricting. And we're just talking about how you utilize your assets. But if there's growth, if there's change, if people move, children are born, things happen throughout life, then you're going to have a natural change within your community. And it just depends on where people move in and where people move out. And are they, young families? Are they older families? What happens there? And then you have to have systems in place to adapt. You change attendance area lines, you build additions, you build new schools. Yeah, and that's what you do. And it just depends on what the need is. The state has rules. Everybody has rules. We have to look at those rules and apply those rules to determine what is the best solution. But to avoid redistricting, and I've been in Baltimore City, Baltimore County, D.C., PG, Hartford, you can't avoid redistricting because there's a natural change within every community. And the buildings are where they are, and you adapt and you try to do the best within your resources. That's just plain.
I want redistricting. I want redistricting to a school in my community.
I'm glad that we brought up the question of redistricting because I think there's a way to make it a lot less painful. And that is you've got a serious public relations problem. People in the community have a perception that some schools are better than others, and they don't want to be districted out of say River Hill or Centennial and districted into Wild Lake or something like that. The fact is, and you have to communicate this, is all of our schools are good. They've got good staff, good teachers, good programs. The programs are all the same. Every high school's got AP programs. I know my kids both went to Wild Lake. They got into competitive colleges. They got good jobs afterwards. There are no bad schools, and you've got to communicate that. Otherwise, you're going to have just a hell of a time whenever you redistrict.
And I have your dinner later on. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I mean, that's the drop. I couldn't say it better. Absolutely.
One more. This will be it.
Thank you. I'm Viviana, and you went to Brian Woods Elementary School at the very beginning of your job, and I think we're a bit very honest about the conditions of the school, and we saw recently the document that you showed to us where we are at number 1 in the needs of many changes, and I wanted to know when these changes will start happening, and because the redistricting is also happening, and we just as parents want to be prepared. And the other thing is that there are many parents at school. I'm also part of PTA, and I'm very involved in my community. I live 2 blocks away from here, and last week on June 5th, I had a gathering here for Ukrainian families. And so I'm involved with kids building empathy towards other kids who come from other countries that are being affected through wars and ethnic cleansing. And so kids are talking about these subjects, and for parents, it's very difficult to have a conversation that sometimes we don't even know how to start these conversations. And so I'm wondering if the school is preparing for the future about how to handle these conversations, because it's very uncomfortable, and sometimes I question myself as a mom, how to do it and how to do it in a healthy way without creating, obviously, no hate and empathy and all that. But I just want you to know that that's the sentiment in the schools too, that we're talking about funding for, wars while money can stay here and support the school system. Thank you.
No, I appreciate that feedback. I'm a feedback junkie like that, so I appreciate that nuance. We're building structures. I mean, parent and family engagement and partnership's really important to myself, our team. We're trying to do things a little differently on that front. Last year we had a parent academy, 1. This year we'll have 2 or more. But you're making me think about a really important topic or workshop that we might be able to put together to marry how we work with our teachers who have to facilitate those same spaces with the same conversations. But how do you do that at home? How do you take some of the trauma that students run into? Because we can ban cell phones during the day, but kids are still getting alerts when they walk out of the building, and they can't get away from it in ways that we could get away from it back in the 1900s, right? So when I was in school. So that's a really important topic. I'm going to send myself a text, ironically, so that I make sure I catch that for the planning team when they're putting that program together. That's a really good idea.
And from a timing standpoint, the board We would like the board to make its decision by Thanksgiving, and then we will action the board's decision for the 26-27 school year for redistricting.
Thank you all for your presentation, your answering the questions, etc. And I want to thank Deb Young for staying here as long as you have. And I appreciate very much you all giving up your Tuesday evening to miss America's Got Talent. But the talent obviously proves it's you all. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you, everyone.